let's have a look at what happened in day 8 because we let's start with Iga Swiatek because this was the match that we kind of earmarking for the day. Swiatek against Rybakina. Rybakina coming in as a bit of a form player, having won tournament prior to coming in here. And I have to say, it did look at one point like Rybakina was going to get the win, didn't it, Joel? Because she was
Yes.
6-1 to love up over the defending champion.
You
Yet,
could just feel the press were ready. They had the news the news article ready. The headlines were getting printed. I mean, it was a set and a set and a breakup. I think for Rybakina, and I think majority of us, even just general tennis fans, were kind of looking at it, being like, "This is going to be a procession."
yeah, but once again, Swiatek proving why she's such a master of these courts and why she's come through battles like this. For example, that Naomi Osaka match from last year being a classic example. This was another match. She was able to turn around and come through 7-5 in the third set. I think, though, in that second set, it kind of came down to that smash that Rebecca missed, and that
Mm.
kind of allowed Iga to level it up. And I just felt like that was like the start of it. And it was a bit of a mammoth third set, wasn't it? But she came out on top, got the job done. And I think that will only make her stronger going through the rest of the tournament now. She's made her sixth straight quarterfinal and, you know, having to draw upon those reserves of being a champion here. I think that's what she's actually maybe needed to kind of elevate her game here. What do you think?
I mean, I I I still don't know. I'm still not sure. I personally think that as well as Iga Swiatek did to come through the match against Rybakina, I still think it was on Rybakina's racket, and her level just dropped
Mm-hmm.
significantly. From set one. I mean, if you look particularly at her service, her first serve, it just fell off a cliff in sets two and sets three, under 50%. I think she was at 43% first serves in set three. And although Swiatek, I think, did really well to kind of stave off break points, and maybe there's an argument to say she played the bigger points better, but at the same time, the way that Rebecca started, sorry, it makes me think that she really dropped the ball when it comes to
Mm.
kind of from set two onwards and trying to get the job done.
So against another player that comes firing out the blocks like Rebecca did, that doesn't let their level drop, Swiatek wouldn't
Yes.
have
Well,
got
that's
through.
that's then kind of the
Mm.
question I'm sort of left with in terms of the fact that great, good for Iga Swiatek coming through the draw into another quarterfinal, but I still feel like the questions remain with regards to her game and her form, because in that first set it was just so one-sided. I mean, 6-1, it was looking, for all intents and purposes, it was going to be a bagel. It was going to be 6-love. And to think that was going to happen to Iga Swiatek, the Queen of
Mm.
Clay in Paris at Roland Garros, was, I mean, it was unfathomable, really, before the tournament, before this clay season. So there's still a few questions for me there, personally.
So do you still think that she can win Roland Garros, Swiatek, this year, given how she's been playing?
I mean, I think she, I think she can win based on all of the previous matches is here, and then this result as well. Even if she wasn't necessarily playing her best, the fact that she came back and responded from being 6-1 down in the first set does show mentally what a strong character that she is. And there's been multiple times in the clay swing when she has suffered such a massive deficit and has kind of ultimately been able to pull through. So I certainly think that she can take a lot of confidence from that for her kind of mental side of her game. But I still worry about the actual tennis that she is playing, and the types of opponents that kind of face her across the court that she could run into if she wants to win another title. Because if we think about, a Sabalenka, for example, I think she's going to be more consistent and be able to kind of keep that level that Rybakina was playing with for longer. And I think it might be too much, for this sort of Swiatek. But I will say, though, it was very, very impressive to see her kind of pull through, because I certainly was someone thinking, this could be a whitewash.
Yeah, I just always feel with multiple Grand Slam champions, especially on a given court and tournament like Swiatek, that they can have an off day, they come through, they win ugly, and
An offset.
suddenly they find themselves in a quarter semi-final and they suddenly just switch gear. And therefore I still wouldn't be surprised if at the end of Saturday we're maybe seeing her win the tournament for the fifth time. I'm putting it out there.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will put it to you.
I might be in the
then.
minority this year.
with this result, do you think Iga Swiatek is now the favourite for Roland Garros?
It's difficult, isn't it? She's a 4-time champion. Maybe not the favourite given on current form, but I would say to you, out of everyone else left in the draw, we've seen them throw in a bad day at the office, and we've seen Swiatek throw in an amazing day at the office. So if those two factors combine, then Swiatek wins the tournament.
Is she second favourite?
Oh, yeah. It's
is
so
she
hard
third favourite?
Where do
you place her? Where do you place her now? Because I do think we were thinking
in the
about
top
her
3.
In the top 3.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Even though she's the fifth seed coming in.
Yeah, she's a 4-time champion, Joel.
Okay.
That counts for something. It's got to.
Well, Jessica Pegula no longer here, so.
No, exactly. And as we discussed earlier today, so yeah, it was a tricky win for Swiatek coming in against, Rybakina, one of the, informed players coming in. But she got the job done. We'll live to see her fight another day.
And what do you think this does, to put into context kind of her clay season, like pulling this result out of nowhere, probably her best result arguably really of the season, given the circumstances. How impressive is it? And do you think almost like we're sort of were wrong to kind of doubt her in the build up, given that we almost were kind of, I don't know, maybe a few of us, including myself, were guilty of writing her off, but actually it goes back to maybe that sort of old adage of like, form is temporary, class is permanent.
Yeah, I think even if she loses to Svitolina tomorrow, for example, I think it will be a respectable Roland Garros. And I think even if you look at her clay season as a whole, she hasn't been losing first round every tournament. She's made semi-finals, for example. It's just we expect such a high standard, which she set the bar so high for us that it always seems like she's underachieving. But if by anyone else's standards, this would be a perfectly respectable season. And I think even as a 4-time champion, were she to lose to Svitolina, make the quarterfinals here, that's still kind of retrieving a respectable result from.
Do you think that's respectable
for
a 4-time champion?
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, Rafa is a multiple-time champion here, comparing things. There was a year where, he lost in the quarterfinals, for example. Djokovic knocked him out, and yes, it's not great, but it's seen as, could have been worse. It could have been the first round, like he fell by the wayside at Wimbledon a few times. So I think, there's certain levels. You making the second week, you down to the last 8. I think that's kind of ticking a certain level of box, even if obviously what we come to expect from Swiatek is very different usually.
Do you think like one result kind of can change everything? Because before we were talking about, she needs a break, she needs to change her coach, she needs to get rid of her sports psychologist. Do you think this eases the pressure a little bit, even if she were to kind of go out in the quarterfinals? Do you think this result alone, given Rybakina was coming into this in form, with a title in the lead up, do you think this eases the pressure on her team slightly?
I guess so. I think just got to take it one match at a time, really. And I do think that it's she's got Svitolina next, which we'll get on to, her sort of fourth round in a second. Could have been Paolini. It's going to be a tricky one, but Swiatek's got that experience, that edge, and I think, you know, she can't keep winning this thing forever, like year after year after year. But even the great champions, they sometimes have a
Mm.
year or two where they're not quite at that level, and then they'll, come back and win it again. She's certainly going to win more Roland Garroses. I think she's too good not to, whether it's this year, but I think she'll be back at the top in the next, foreseeable.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not writing her off just yet,
yeah,
Joel.
it does make me. I mean, before we move on, it does make me think about the Rafa Nadal records and his consistency, and thinking, we were kind of talking about Swiatek in terms of being almost like this female equivalent to Rafa, and it really does show, you know, I mean, Swiatek having a blip in form, it puts into context just how incredible those records from Rafa are in terms of the number of victories that he's had in Paris. And it's nothing to be sniffed at if you're Iga Swiatek with what she's got at the moment. But it just shows that there's still such a long way to go, I guess, in terms of those comparisons to be kind of truly justified.
Yeah, it's early days. She's a big Rafa fan herself. I don't think she would want to be put in that same sort of category, really. But I would say that sometimes we've seen people win slams from those matches where they've just managed to scrape through, saving match points, and sometimes that can be the push up the bottom that they needed. And I just wonder if that Rybakina match is that for her.